Why do I keep calling roundabouts off-ramps? Turn-in's great. Off-throttle oversteer. Yep, power down, straight we go. What are they doing at Toyota? That's insane. Because I know what Lexus is capable of. They build amazing cars. The LC 500, truly one of my favorite cars on the market right now. Watch this. Look at that. So easy. You can just do it all day long. And then this, which is just, you can tell no one cared in the engineering department. This is my impression of the car. This video is brought to you by Nokian Tires, a leader in safety and sustainability. Maximize performance and efficiency with their made in USA all-season tires and their dedicated Hakkapeliitta EV winter line from the inventor of the winter tire. Learn more at nokiantire.com/EV. This video is also brought to you by Magna, forward for all. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome home actually to Fort Collins, Colorado, and welcome to the new Lexus RZ 450e. This is a fully battery electric Lexus built on the same platform as the BZ4X and Subaru Solterra, but right off the bat, there's so much that has changed for the Lexus version, it's gonna be worth it for you guys to watch this video to find out about the differences. So of course, in this video, I'm gonna drive it for the first time, which is actually taking a little while for me to get behind the wheel, but I'm excited to have a go in this one. And I'm also going to take you on a full tour of the exterior and the interior and talk about its specs, its pricing, the competition, and lots of other stuff. So strap in. It's another I Drive X for the first time video. In this case, the RZ 450e. You guys know these are long and in depth, but we're going to learn everything we need to know about the electric Lexus. Before I tell you about the first electric Lexus, also there was some little one-off project electric Lexi out there previously. This is the first global, real electric Lexus. I want to talk about the first ever Lexus, which of course is the sister company to Toyota, and it's the LS 400. And the LS 400 is arguably the best engineered car of all time. They spent, the engineers launching into really the US market with this vehicle, they had to go after 7 Series, after S-Class, and they came here, they studied our culture, learned what we want to use our cars for. They built a car that looked great, that has unbelievable reliability. Of course, we've heard of the smoking tires million-mile Lexus, and it was fast and it did everything you needed to do, and on a technical level at the time it was just off the charts. I actually own one of those. I own an LS 400 and you can hear updates on that car on my personal Kyle Connor YouTube channel, and I'll actually be comparing that car to the new LS in a very short period of time. That's a video I'm really looking forward to. But the reason I bring up the LS 400 is we know what Lexus is capable of from an engineering standpoint, and Toyota. They literally launched into the US market with a premium vehicle and wiped the sales of everything else out there and built, you know, arguably, like I mentioned, the best engineered car of all time. They've also built the LF8, which is insane. So did the engineers take the time to build the best electric vehicle with the most efficient motors, with huge performance, with big luxury, or did they kind of phone it in and say, we really don't want to do electric stuff? That's my impression of the RZ, is the second. Kind of a shame off the bat. We have some bad numbers here. This car has less than 200 miles of range, and it costs well over $60,000. Okay, I'm not a fan of using range to price ratio because there's so much more than an electric car than just its outright range. But that's just a huge it's got to do something really great, you know, to combat those two things. And right off the bat, it just doesn't. So there's a lot to get into this video because it's so different than the BZ4X and everything. But truly, I have to come into this with a bit of almost a sad vibe because I know what Lexus is capable of. They build amazing cars. The LC 500, truly one of my favorite cars on the market right now. And here we go. Blew the tires off in first. All right, now we're just gonna pitch it in. This is a full muscle drift car. Watch this. Look at that. So easy. You can just do it all day long. Okay, I won't and then this, which is just, you can tell no one cared in the engineering department. This is my impression of the car. So what do we have that we're working with here? We have a car that's built on the E-Tenga or ETNGA platform, which is shared by the Subaru Solterra and the Toyota BZ4X. Now, interestingly, at least in the US market, you can only get the all-wheel drive Lexus RZ. And come around back so you guys can see what it looks like down this way. It's really not a bad looking car. I actually think it's the best looking of the bunch. It looks premium. It's deserving of the price, I think, when you look at it from the outside. It's interesting. It's got cool design touches. I don't think it's a bad looking car. It's got little ducktail situation going on here. It's nice. So they offer this only in all-wheel drive. They call it Direct 4, but it's essentially the same motors of the BZ4X with a different front motor, so the rear is identical. I'll explain the powertrain to you here in just a moment, but just on that BZ4X Solterra conversation. In those vehicles, the sister vehicles to this one, when you get the all-wheel drive car, you actually get a larger battery pack, which kind of makes sense. You go from like 71 kilowatt hours to 72 and a bit. And that sounds great. You're combating extra weight by adding a rear motor in the case of those particular vehicles. And yeah, it just makes sense. The problem is the bigger battery charges slower than the smaller battery. They have two different cell suppliers. Don't ask me which is which. I used to know, I think it was CATL and LG, if I remember correctly, but I can't remember which one goes where. Someone in the comments will know. And if you watch my BZ4X video, I explain it there. But the problem with the all-wheel drive Solterra and the all-wheel drive BZ4X is you get the big battery with only 100 kilowatt charging that takes over 5 hours to go from 0 to 100% on a DC fast charger and peaks somewhere around 86 kilowatts. They say on the website 100 kilowatts. Myself and other BZ4X testers and owners could never get more than 86 to 88. I think no one's seen in the 90s on one of those cars. That's where it gets pretty interesting with this one because I want to bring it to a charger. In the Lexus version, yes, it's all-wheel drive, but they put the smaller battery in it, which means, at least on paper, 150 kilowatt charging rate peak. That's pretty manageable. I'm cool with 150 kilowatts, especially considering 80 is the other car, but we have to bring it to a charger and find out what is the peak charging speeds we get, because I've never been able to test a front wheel drive BZ4X and it's been on the list, but now we have that battery. So great. That's a huge plus. So you have 71.4 kilowatt hours, I believe, usable, with a 196 mile range because we have the 20-inch wheels. If you were to get the 18-inch wheels, which look awfully ugly, then you get 220 miles of range, which is still pretty poor. But I'm okay if it has low range as long as it meets it in the real world. So what we need to do is run this in our range test, which will come in a future video since it's here in Colorado. We'll run this exact car and we'll see if it can get 200 miles on the highway. And for those of you who followed the channel, you'll notice the range test of this car is already up. So after this video, go take a look, but it was actually one of the lowest range cars we've ever tested. And a little spoiler alert, it did not even meet its EPA rated range. Just brutal. If it cannot do 200 miles on the highway, again, the EPA range rating's 196, I think, then it's just a non-starter, folks. I'm sorry, you just don't go here, especially considering a Tesla Model Y, which is a competitor to this vehicle, costs about $10,000 less and goes about 100 miles farther, and it's faster 0 to 60 and presumably better handling and has autopilot and Tesla supercharger network access and all of the above. So, okay, you get where I'm going. You have to approach this in this world. So who is the buyer for the RZ right off the bat? It's going to be someone who's leased 5 RXs in a row. It's going to be the Lexus buyer. This car, I can tell you right now, is not going to attract any customers to the Lexus brand for this to become their first EV. This is an EV built for existing Lexus owners, so when they show up at the dealer lot, they go, hey, rather than getting another NX or UX, why don't you get the RZ and drive an electric car, Betty? But the problem is the salesperson isn't going to want to convince Betty to drive electric and to teach her how to use the car. So you're really not going to see very many of these out there because the dealers are going to, claim low demand, which is always the case in these situations. And it's just going to be a pretty niche product. But it's cool that I'm able to play around with it. So the specs, I already explained 150 kilowatt charge port here, by the way, on the side. Much nicer charge port door, but if you notice, I can't close it. You have to put your thumb at a very particular place, which is right there. They just need like a little X marks the spot, which is, yeah, that's the spot to do it. But if you push anywhere else, what do you think of that, Alyssa?
Charge ports, I don't know.
Well, once you know, like if you own the car, you'll know to push it right in the middle.
Right, but this would have taken me forever if you would have never explained this to me. But, I mean, yeah, it's just a little thing that we'll get used to within time, so not a huge thing. But no flip flaps.
Right, so it's actually a much better charge port than the BZ4X. The BZ4X is like a really weird charge port on it, and yeah, I would say this certainly is a better charge port inlet, as well as, having that DC flap is nice rather than having a dangly thing. And so once you know where to push this, okay, we're good. But there's more bad in this area. Let me open this again. That is your J1772 plug. That's where you're going to do your AC. If you're not familiar with electric cars, this is your DC plug. Two problems here. The first is Lexus has not yet committed to using the North American charging standard, the Tesla connector, the much better connector, to provide their customers a better charging experience. So if someone at Lexus hopefully is watching this video and learning what you need to have in the EV market, well, you need to have a North American charging standard port so you can tell Lexus owners to not charge in the back of Walmarts. You'll charge at much nicer locations and have a much more reliable experience. That conversation I've spent much too much time talking about in the past, not to get into in this video. But there's a big problem here, Alyssa. Do you know what it is?
Does it have to do with the flap?
No. It has to do with the AC charging capabilities of the RZ. Can you think about what might be the problem there?
I have no clue.
Okay, so most electric cars that we've been testing with large battery packs, I'm talking 60 plus kilowatt hours, have a 48 amp onboard charger. And even some of them have an 80 amp onboard charger, like F-150 Lightning and Lucid Air. This one, do you know how many amps it can do?
22.
No, it's better than 22. It's 32.
Nice.
It's a 6.6 kilowatt onboard charger. So if you drive a lot electric wise, and you get home and plug into the wall, it'll still be full in the morning, but certainly you're not going to be able to onboard as much energy on level 2 as you would want to, I think. I think a car that's, again, this one's about, we have to look at the window sticker, but high $60,000 range, 68 grand, 67 grand, deserves to have a 48 amp onboard charger. So right there, it's just like, what the heck is going on? It's totally usable. It's doable. I get why they didn't want to spend the money on a higher onboard charger, because they're probably just using the same unit out of the RAV4 Prime top spec. The Limited gets this onboard charger, but it's just lame. Okay, so we've gone through range. The one thing, actually, before I open the door, we haven't talked about is the drive line yet, the drivetrain, as it beeps away. In the rear, we have an 80 kilowatt electric motor with a silicon carbide inverter for efficiency. So that is actually going to be kind of interesting to see how this does on the highway, because they claim they've made it pretty slippery. I don't know what the CD value is. That wasn't in any of the official materials, but that doesn't ever really matter because it's coefficient of drag times surface area. They never give us surface area. So that's coefficient of drag's lame in my opinion. So it has a rear electric motor, and I'm not 100% sure if it's induction or if it's a permanent magnet motor. I could not find anywhere. Judging by not having any clutch disconnects, I'm guessing it's an induction motor, but I could be totally wrong because it drives like a permanent magnet motor. It's pretty fascinating. Don't know what it is, to be honest. If one of you guys know, let me know in the comments. I may have explored it with BZ4X, but I can't find the info anywhere on this one. But it's a 3-in-1 unit. It has a built-in inverter with the gearbox and the electric motor all in one there. 80 kilowatts, same as BZ4X all-wheel drive. In Solterra and BZ4X all-wheel drive, you have an additional 80 kilowatt front motor in those vehicles. So it's 80 kilowatt front and rear, exactly 50-50 power distribution. But guess what Lexus has done here, Alyssa?
You tell me.
Okay, they have upgraded the front motor to a 150 kilowatt electric motor.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big juicy bump.
That is a big jump.
But if you had an axle to choose to have the majority of power on, which would you choose, Alyssa, front or rear?
Rear.
Yeah, because you want to go, you want to power on oversteer the car, you want it to drive as a performance vehicle. And Lexus should be a little performancey. They build the IS 500, the LC 500. They have their F models like RCF, which are great performance cars, truly. And then they go over here and slap the front axle as having twice the power as the rear axle. Now, in the press materials, this direct 4 system claims it can send 100% of the power to the front or 100% of the power to the rear. True at partial throttle, there's no direct linkage, of course, they're independent motors. So you can do that ratio up to a certain point as to when you max out the rear motor. And if you go wide open, you'll always have, about 50% more power on the front axle than the rear, which is going to make it drive weird, is my prediction. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about direct force tuning because they spoke a lot about that as well, and I can share that information with you. So in total, it's about 300 horsepower, and we'll do an acceleration test and see how that feels. Trying to find the front trunk opener, if it even has a front trunk. Right here, actually easy to find. Let's see what's under the hood of the RZ 450E. We have a latch somewhere, found it, boom. Oh boy, we got to use one of these old school holders. Where does it go? Here, boom. Okay, so what do we have under here? No front trunk space, Alyssa. Isn't this a battery electric platform from the ground up, the e-Tenga?
Yeah, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So not sure what's going on there. Also noticing a chassis brace here. By the way, McPherson strut up front, and it has a double wishbone with trailing arm in the rear. Yeah, that kind of makes sense from a packaging standpoint why they do McPherson strut up here. I'm also noticing no electrical connections to the dampers. But one thing that Lexus have done here for the chassis tuning, which is different than the other cars, and actually really similar to the Tesla Model 3 refresh, is that they've added frequency response damping system to the vehicle. So it's a passive damper that actually is active. And so maybe I should say a non-powered active damper would be a better way to describe this. It can only adjust on the response when the suspension's opening up after a bump. It can control that portion of the damper, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how this feels. And in theory, it should kind of soften up over bumps. And when you throw it into corners, it should, in theory, firm up the damper. What do we have here? We have our, looks like onboard charger here, because I can see the orange cables going right to the charge port over that way. We have, so we have our electric converter from Denso, which is right here. We have our fuse box, no e-fuses in this one, also showing, honestly, in my opinion, how far behind they are from Tesla and automakers. Like, you're not even gonna find a fuse box in a Tesla. So electronic fuses, maybe there's some for some low voltage systems, but everything's pretty much e-fuse. Unlike this, you don't get big boxes taking up all this space. Yeah, everything just looks like kind of thrown in here and not much really to talk about, but it does seem to have some juicy cooling lines. So maybe thermal management will be a good thing on this car. I don't know. Doesn't ultimately matter to the end user. So we're not going to do any like hardcore performance tests with this thing. So that's a tour of the outside. Let me show you the trunk space here, and then we'll get into the cabin and talk a little bit more about that. But, I have to say, I don't mind the exterior styling, and I don't mind the like feeling of the car and everything. It feels pretty nice. It has a 120 volt EVSE just thrown in the back. So this must have been what's making noise. And it is a 12 amp unit. So that's great. Looks like this one. And it actually appears to be potentially adjustable. Is it? Maybe it's just for market specific ones, but either way, it comes with that. You're going to want to put a level 2 unit in at your house. Whoa, deep underfloor storage here. Lexus claims that they re-engineered the way the rear motor sits so the inverter isn't totally on top, so you have a flatter floor back here, and you even have some extra storage up that way, which is pretty sweet. So no complaints here about the trunk space. What do we have under here? Let's take a look. Tow hitch and a few other things. Okay, just some tools if you get stranded, and that just snaps back in. And we have a little cover here. Lexus always like puts every accessory possible in their press cars, which I find funny. Power trunk, pretty fast, pretty quiet. Nice trunk action, unlike Lexus. The beeps, on brand though. I have to say the car makes some nice noises when you walk up to it from the outside. It gives you this little hum, this little chime as you unlock it. It's quite premium and really feels different than BZ4X. The door handles are also different. You'll notice they don't pull out of the door. They actually have a little latch on the inside that you push. It's a little pressure one, and that unlatches the door. It's a nice action. I have no issues with the electronic door actuators on this particular one. Just because the sun is directly behind me, it probably doesn't look good on camera. We're gonna move the car for the interior review. But there you go. I think we all have to approach this car with, it's for the existing Lexus buyer that might end up in one of these. And so what I'm really trying to find out is, what are the limitations of the vehicle? Because BZ4X, truly, it's hard to recommend that car from a road tripping standpoint, at least if you get the all-wheel drive version. If this charges pretty well on DC power, then if you lease one of these things for a good lease and you just want a Lexus, it might actually be okay for the end user. But it just really shows Toyota and Lexus came into this battery electric world kicking and screaming. They didn't want to do it because they did a shared platform and the numbers are just not here off the start. But again, it should drive pretty interesting. So let's go in. I'll show you the interior, which is a huge highlight of this vehicle. I like the interior, and maybe not a huge highlight. There's some things I don't like as well now that I'm thinking about it. But let's go in. I'll show you around. And now it's time for the back seat review of the RZ. So I've pulled the car just over here in the shade and about to have a seat inside. And I have to say, wow, nice headroom actually. And this glass roof, this panel comes pretty far back. You'll notice the glass is actually, you can't see anything out of it. It's like sort of electrically shaded. And there's actually a button right over here. If you take a look up at the glass, you'll see it can change. How cool is that? What do you think, Alyssa?
Yeah, I love that feature. It helps with any type of sun glares or extra heat, and yeah, I think it's needed in most cars.
And the default mode, where there's no electricity applied to the glass, is when it's sort of in its shielded setting, and it will apply the electricity when you want to see through. So it's actually not bad for efficiency, I think. So we have a center armrest here. This interior material is sort of a suede finish everywhere, and it's 30% recycled material, which doesn't seem that high, but okay, we at least have that. That's good. Yeah, nice. It's sort of this blue color. We have a wall outlet down here with no grounding plug. I don't think I've ever seen that. That's wild. So it says it'll do 100 watts, so it can charge a laptop, I guess, barely. Wow, I've never seen like a NEMA 515 without the grounding pin. That's so interesting, actually. And then we have two air vents back here, so it passes the Uber test. Love to see that. And heated rear seats, which is a really nice touch as well. USB-C ports for each rear passenger. That's quite progressive for Toyota to not put USB-A ports in a vehicle. So they've come around to the future. How about that? Nice feeling. Oh shit handles, so that feels nice. Door seat pockets, I should say, also good. Yeah, overall, no issues with the back seat room in this thing. The back seat's nicely sculpted. There's a little button on the door release, so maybe Alyssa, you can show them how you get out. Yeah, you just push that there. Super nice. There's also a lock and unlock button back here, which I don't understand the functioning reason for that. And there you go. And another bonus, the rear window goes all the way down. But as a downside for that, you have this separate piece of glass back here as well. So let's jump in the front. Why don't you hop in back here, Alyssa, and we'll do a little front interior review of the RZ. So heading into the front seat now, and yeah, so a couple things right off the bat that I really hate. The first is whatever they've put on the steering wheel is like the nastiest, most offensive material. What do you, I keep asking you your impression. You don't seem to share, like you really want to talk too much about the RZ, but what do you think about the steering wheel?
It feels like those little stress ball hacky sack things.
Yeah, the things that you
It
squeeze.
doesn't really bother me, but I know it really bothers you.
Yeah, I was like, I don't really want to drive this car.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I need gloves. This is crazy. I was like, wow, that's okay.
I've always been a bit of a stickler about greasy steering wheels, but whatever this material is like, go to a dealer and see if you're okay with it, because I'm not okay with it. So instantly would need to put a steering wheel cover on this thing for sure. The second thing that I have issues with is actually the door panel. And I don't think you'll be able to see this on video. Maybe you will. But I can actually physically, when I pull to close the door, watch the deflection in the door panel. Everything moves. So you pull the door closed and then it closes and you're just watching the door flex. And that doesn't give the impression of build quality to me. Like even bumping my knee into it, you can see how much deflection there is in the door. So not into that at all. Every time I like drive and my knee hits this piece out of the corner of my eye, I watch the door give way. Wow. Okay, so those are the only real two downsides to the interior that I have. Everything else I'm okay with because it actually looks kind of cool and slightly futuristic in my opinion. Yeah, the dash comes up pretty high, but none of it is obstructing my view out the front. The airflow to my face is wonderful. So really no issues there. The only thing I will say is when you really heat soak the car and go max AC, it's almost like the air conditioning isn't totally strong enough, but it's totally livable, especially if you get the Lexus app. You can precondition it, so I would just cool it down that way. Head-up display is huge as well and really nice, and all of these buttons here on the steering wheel actually are touch sensitive, and as I touch them, they show up in the head-up display. It's something we won't be able to capture on camera because it just, cameras never pick up head-up displays that nice, but it means as I'm driving, I don't have to look down on the steering wheel as to if I'm hitting the right button. I can find it, and then once it's highlighted, I can select it. And so that is a really, really nice function, I think. The display in front of me is super lame and not very high quality, and also just not that bright in my opinion. I have the brightness up all the way, and it just is very little information. It doesn't give me my state of charge. Actually, nowhere in this vehicle does it give you your state of charge in percent. It just will give you this gauge with ticks on it. So we are at about 55% state of charge, I would say, maybe 58% state of charge, and it's predicting 94 miles of range.
That's not good.
That's not good. So yeah, range isn't everything in an electric car. I'm the first guy to tell you that range doesn't matter, but when you have this little range and then winter time comes, could be rough because we own an e-tron with very limited range, but that's rated at 225 from the factory. So a whole nother, 30 miles above this car. And even that car is kind of a pain in the butt to live with in the winter, and it has a great charging curve. So yeah, we need to do some more tests here in the Lexus. But the interior, okay, all good. No major issues here. Other than the steering wheel, seats are really nice. They're ventilated and heated, which is great. They have lumbar, but it only goes in and out, not up and down, which is kind of crazy. But then Lexus slapped in this over 1,000 watt Mark Levinson sound system that should bump. I haven't tested it yet, but I just saw the number and I'm like, over 1,000 watts. So huge sound system in this thing. I'm really looking forward to trying that out. I'll of course update you throughout the video. In terms of the center stack here, we have a really large, what am I trying to say? Display, thank you. It starts up here in the corner and it comes all the way down here and then over. So this whole thing is the display, even down this way. Now they've put these cool little knobs where the display shows you the temperature in the middle of the knob. A really nice implementation, and the knobs feel pretty good, like no issues. It's fairly responsive, and you have, easy to understand air conditioning controls and everything you could need here. So no issues with any of this. But we have to do the test that every EV has to pass, which is we need to search for a destination. So how do we actually do that? I click search navigation. And I'm going to search for, where should we go? Las Vegas from here is what we typically do, right, Alyssa?
Yes.
Okay, so Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a typical trip for someone in Colorado would go to. It's about 800 miles on the nose, and it's where we do our race to Vegases. So you can see it's mapped out the whole route pretty quickly, and we'll hit go now. And it says recharge to reach destination. Okay, so is it going to tell me where I need to stop? It does not have any chargers added in the system at all. So there is zero route planning here. And we noticed this with the BZ4X too. How can you come into a market and sell an electric car, especially for someone's first electric car, which is going to be this thing because they didn't do their research and look at numbers on paper. They bought the RZ. How can you sell a car and it not tell you where to charge?
So then you're going to have distracted driving because you're on your phone trying to figure out where to charge.
You'll be in PlugShare the whole time trying to gauge your range on this thing, and it's just
about PlugShare.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not good. So what happens if I click search and I say I want, first of all, it makes this really loud beeping noise and starts asking for voice, which is, if anyone knows me, I hate voice inputs on things. So I don't want that. What I do want is I want to search for charging, because that would be like what the next person, you're right? I want to charge my car. Type in charging station. Great. Ah, wonderful. Tesla destination charger right down the street. It can send me there. So let's add that stop. By the way, it's only a level 2 station and it's the wrong plug type. What are they doing at Toyota? That's insane. You would never find this from like any other reasonably engineered car. So that's just really bad. It not only does it not send you to chargers, when you search for chargers, it sends you to a Tesla charger that's not even a supercharger, which you still can't use with this car without an adapter, which doesn't come with the car, so no one's going to have the adapter.
Wow.
So continuing with the infotainment system, we have some music options. I can choose from sources, built-in Apple Music and Amazon Music, and also I can, of course, Bluetooth my phone over or USB in. Where's the built-in Spotify? I feel like that's what all the cool people use. Not sure why that's in there. No one uses, I don't know anyone who uses Apple Music. Cue the 5,000 people in the comments who use Apple Music. They'll come. But I use Spotify, so I'm locked in my little bubble. No Spotify in here, but Rivian, Tesla, BMW, others use Spotify built in. I feel like that's just a normal thing. You have phone over here, and then you have some mode settings for the vehicle. So we have drive mode. We can put it in normal, sport, eco, or range. And this display goes through a graphical change when you do this. I don't know if you can zoom in on that, Alyssa, but it doesn't actually change anything other than the background color. So range is blue, normal is gray, eco is bluer, and sport is red. Wow. Really nice. There's also a custom setting where you can put the powertrain in sport. We can put the steering in comfort, normal, and we can put the air conditioning in normal. That's probably how I would drive the car most of the time. Yeah, some other settings around here, some really interesting ones. If we come into the charging settings, you can set your charging current from 8, 16, or 32 amps, although it just says max. I don't know why it doesn't say what it would actually do. And you can set your maximum state of charge limit from 50% up to 100% every day. That's a really useful feature, so they got some of that right. And then there's a unique feature in here that I've never seen other than the BZ4X, which is you can actually limit your DC charging power. So let's say the 150 kilowatts that we're probably not going to get, but we might get, is just too spicy for you, too fast. Well, you can limit this bad boy all the way down to 50 kilowatts and charge it how the Toyota engineers wanted you to. Isn't that insane? That's just crazy. So we're going to keep that on max because we like to charge fast. I don't really see any reason why you would want to slow this down other than you just want to keep your car on the charger longer without getting idle fees if you're going shopping. So all this is doing is not helping throughput at charging stations. And actually, I should say, there are other cars that let you limit the charging power, but not in terms of max speed like this. Like Mercedes has eco charging that limits it pretty low, I think 100 kilowatts, and then does it based off temperature. Porsche does battery care. I forget what they call it, but battery friendly quick charging. It limits you to 200 kilowatts, which is still faster than this car is at max. And yeah, I don't know. Interesting setting. I'm not complaining it's in there because selfishly, I could see myself using this, but it would only be at a station that's not heavily used. I would not want to block someone. And then, interestingly, you can turn off battery cooling. Why would you ever want to do that? I want my battery as much cooling as possible to the battery, please. That is wild. So those are just some interesting settings that I found in this system. I'm going to go through the other systems and see if I can find anything else interesting. But there you go. We'll drive it because I feel like we've been rambling a bit. And there's a lot of really cool things and a lot of really not cool things so far. And the price is just a non-starter. It has to be a lease. And the lease has to be good. It does not qualify for the tax credit. It's, what is the, oh yeah, there's no glove box because it has actually radiant heating, which is kind of cool. Let's take a look at the, first of all, the giant owner's manual of the Lexus RZ. Some nice gentle reading. And thank you, Alyssa, for the window sticker. What is this thing? $67,000. It's a luxury all-wheel drive RZ 450E. I don't even think you can get a Model Y that expensive for a performance one.
No, I don't think so either. And what's actually funny is that all the events that we've been to, they always are really trying to push this car, but every person that's always there has no idea about it.
Yeah, so like Lexus has gone to like every Electrify Expo event and Drive Electric events, and the reps that they send there have zero idea how electric works. Like they are doing a disservice. Not that this car deserves a service, but they're doing even a disservice to the RZ. So I really think Toyota Lexus need a lot of help. They do not realize the amount of what they're in if they don't get their act together with electric. At least, yeah, I understand hybrids are great, combustion cars are great, you need to sell them to keep the business alive, but dedicate a team of passionate battery electric drivers and engineers and salespeople and marketers to understand how to do electric and at least have some competency there, because nothing about this car is showing anything competent. All right, let's go drive it. Well, you join us inside the BZ4X now, and just to summarize what we've learned up to this point is it's significantly more expensive than the competition. It has significantly less range than the competition. It has significantly slower AC charging than the competition, and significantly slower DC charging than the competition. So what's good about this, Alyssa?
Well, I like the interior a lot. I think the seats feel really good. The knobs are kind of nice. This screen isn't terrible, but that screen in the middle is a freaking potato. And I mean, it's definitely, and what's funny is I don't know why, Kyle asked me, he was like, oh, how much do you think this cost? And I really thought it was a high number. But I think I was just perceived when I was a kid that Lexus was like a really nice brand because of my grandfather, so.
Yeah, Lexus in your mind was LS 400 days.
Yeah, my mom also drove a Buick and loved it, so
Sure.
I didn't really come from much of a background.
So, into drive, it's got this funky shifter. I kind of like the shifter. It's the same as the BZ4X, which your sister couldn't figure out.
Right.
I remember that was really funny, that
you have
video.
To push down and then...
Right, down and then over. But then we also have shift paddles. Mm-hmm. And so we'll play around with those in a minute. So I come off the brakes. Don't hit them yet.
Well, I was seeing how far. They look pretty far from like your hand placement.
Oh, yeah. No, it's not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not going to use them very often. I'll explain to the viewers why. But it's not that useful. Oh. It's a one and done for every drive.
Okay.
All right, so when we're in drive right now, we're in key up settings. If I come off the brake pedal, we are inching forwards, and we're targeting a creep speed of 3 miles an hour. So there's no one pedal driving, at least in the key up setting. Reverse, it targets 2 miles an hour backwards, but 3 miles an hour forwards. Oh, the rocking. So this is always interesting to go reverse to drive, like if you're backing out of a spot. Yeah. Really not smooth in this one.
No, is it smooth in any cars now?
Yeah, your e-tron's particularly unsmooth, but Tesla's perfect with that. Other than early Teslas, they are not. Oh, they're pretty clunky at this sort of changing direction thing. So we have creep mode, and then you have a sort of brake-by-wire situation where if you want to come off of the speed, it will blend in regen and friction brakes to bring you down to a stop. And it's actually a really nice feeling brake pedal. So I have to give them props on that. So what does the paddle shifters actually do as we're just driving around in this school parking lot? We've actually given a presentation on electric cars at this school.
Yes, we're allowed to.
Yeah, we're allowed to be here. So if I pull the right paddle, we get 2 down arrows, which at this speed feels like not much. And what these essentially are designed to do is to increase and decrease your regen.
Right.
And each automaker does this differently. Some think the plus paddle means increase regen.
Yeah.
Some think the negative paddle means increase regen. And so in this case, the negative paddle increases regenerative braking, which to me makes sense because I'm downshifting. I want more engine braking. I pull the left pedal to slow down.
That's the same for my e-tron, right?
Your e-tron is the same way as this.
Yeah. I've just learned that, but I would think mentally that plus means more, so.
Right. Plus means more coasting in this case. Mm-hmm. And so there's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, if you pull and hold, 5 levels of regenerative braking that you can choose from.
It's a lot.
That's a lot of choice, and there's not much difference between them. But if you go all the way down to the left paddle, actually, what it will do is something pretty interesting. How do we get out of here? We go straight here. Can't even see because the sun is so blinding. It will actually put on the brake lights for you when you're decelerating, and there's a brake light indicator in the dashboard to tell you when the brake lights are on. That's kind of a nice touch. When I come on, I get these 2 little red lines under here.
Can you really see that?
Yeah, just out of the corner of my eye over the eye tracking LiDAR thing. So let's pull out on the road. Let's go. Actually, I kind of went the wrong way because I wanted to go to the charger first, and we're being blinded. So let's test the U-turn ability. Full turn.
Whip it.
Great turning radius.
Yeah.
Not bad.
This car does not feel bad at all.
No, like driving, it's actually not terrible.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the magic here, especially over the BZ4X where some of the money is going. There are rattles in this car though. I don't know if you just heard that one, but there's a rattle up here somewhere, and there's one in my door.
Yeah.
So maybe build quality questionable, at least on this particular one. It's probably pre-production, and they usually get the early ones in the review fleet, so not a huge deal at the moment. It's not unusual. But yeah, when I put the paddle on full regen like this, we're in max, the brake lights come on when you lift off, but still sadly no one pedal driving. So as you get to about 5 miles an hour, you have to blend in the physical brake pedal, and then it will pull you to a stop. There's also an auto hold setting that if we do come to a stop, it's not going to try and move away. It will keep the car stationary there.
I will say, when I drive my e-tron versus the Tesla, and because my e-tron obviously doesn't have one pedal driving, it doesn't bother me at all. I don't really feel like I'm missing something from having it, because I think naturally, even in one pedal driving, I still put my foot on the pedal when I'm stopping, because I just don't use it properly. But I feel like that's a lot of people who are switching into EVs. You're naturally, your brain's wired to always put your foot on the pedal when you're at a stop sign or a stoplight or something like that.
Yeah, I'm actually totally fine with both strategies. It doesn't matter too much to me. Although I do really like a nice one pedal tune system, like the Rivian system. I think it's one of the best one pedals out there. Same with Tesla, of course, but I feel like I've mentioned them 5,000 times in this review already, because like they're the car you have to compare everything to at the moment.
For sure.
They are the benchmark.
You have to respect that.
Most journalists don't like Tesla, so
No, they don't.
don't understand why. I agree. There's a lot of things they do that are stupid, like removing turn signals. But topic for another day. Okay, back to cruising around the city. I have the vehicle. Let's just take a look at the mode that we're in right now. So I'm going to click the car, and we're going to just select normal mode just to double check everything's in normal drive mode. And it's responsive. Mm-hmm. It's quite nice. They actually even give you your power split in the all-wheel drive menu to see what axle's making what power, which is kind of cool.
Be curious to what this looks like when we go over to the big train tracks over here, because that's actually a pretty good test to see like how smooth the drivetrain is.
Mm-hmm. But you mean more for suspension than power?
Yeah, all the above.
Oh, the drivetrain's not going to be affected by the bumps.
All the above.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay, you're not going to see any difference over a bump really, unless there's a wheel spin.
It won't. It doesn't.
This
raise.
isn't. Oh, this is not the suspension height.
Oh.
This is the power per wheel.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, nope. But I'm trying to think what does that. Our Range Rover does that, where it shows the articulation. Yeah, that's not what this graph is. You can see it's, if I floor it, all of them go full bars on the blue.
Yeah.
So it's a power distribution graph. And the car's comfortable, I have to say.
Like, pretty good.
No issues with the ride quality here. This frequency response damper does a really good job over a big bumps. Like here's a pretty juicy bump. Let's feel this. Totally well controlled.
Yeah, that's fine.
No big wallowing. It soaked it up. I actually like the ride quality on this.
Yeah, I don't think it's bad at all. I don't think I've actually driven it personally yet, but just sitting here as a passenger, I usually can feel a lot more than you can, because you're anticipating everything, because you're more aware than I am. And yeah, I haven't been bothered by it, so.
Great. No, that's good. I agree. I think the ride is nice. It's much more comfortable than the Model Y. So in terms of ride quality, this takes the cake for sure. We're about to jump on the highway, so let's do that. And then we'll, of course, do some sporty driving on the way to the charger around all those roundabouts. We'll plug it in at the charger, see if we get 150 kilowatts, and then that'll be that.
Sounds like a good long video for you guys.
Yeah, so let's go burn some juice, warm up this battery, get it down as low as we pretty much can in this short period that we have it. But stay tuned because we'll do charging tests, range tests, and all the above on this channel in no time. But this rattle is crazy. Dang.
Yeah.
So I'm just playing around with the car with no regen on at the moment by pulling the plus paddle for a second. And I think it's doing adaptive regen. So if I really come up on this person, we get a pretty big hit of regen right there because it's doing it based off distance. And then if I pull the left paddle, it locks in maximum regen all the way. So that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah.
I like auto regen for very unique use cases. The AC seats are also working great. So let's just send it through the corner. Very intrusive traction control system and very front wheel drive biased. When we get to the performance stuff, I'll talk a little bit about how the drivetrain is controlled, but the ride is great. The ride is really nice. And if yeah, these frequency response dampers are epic. They're really nice compromise between, I would say, holding the car steady in a corner and also comfortable. But the reason that we are filming right now is to test some lane tracing on, so driving assistant and noise on the highway. So I have to figure out how to activate. So following distance all the way in here, we're gonna lock adaptive cruise on. We're gonna set it to 80 miles an hour and it is actively lane centering and we are off. So we're using their lane centering system and adaptive cruise control. And I have to say that is a nice and easy system to set up. I have a great head-up display with all my information. This screen certainly isn't very helpful. Really like the head-up display one. It's not showing me any cars around me, which is kind of a bummer. Will it do lane changes? No. As soon as you hit the turn signal, steering disengages.
Okay.
So once we're in this lane, it re-picks up and pulls us in. No problem.
I like that.
A lot of systems work this way. Actually, your Audi works this way. So no major issues there. I would say it's not certainly auto lane change capable, but not everything needs to be, and you don't have to re-engage when you get in the lane, which I think is actually a downside of autopilot.
Yeah.
So, yep. So the one thing I want to find out is it a capacitive wheel or is it a torque sensing wheel? And there's also an eye tracking component here. So I'm going to cover that up just to try and force a driver takeover request as soon as possible. So there's our one. And it is a capacitive wheel. Very cool. So maybe that's worth it for this material, which I still just hate the material. But we need to discuss noise and ride comfort cruising at just over 70 miles an hour. What's your impression of noise and overall, ride and road trip ability, if you will?
Ride comfort is great. Noise is pretty loud.
It's way louder than I was expecting.
Yeah, especially for the price, you'd think you'd get a little bit more noise dampening inside, but it does not seem to be the case with this car at all.
No, really a shame actually how loud it is. So that's quite interesting. Definitely with you on that one. So, we're going to cruise on down to the charger. It can certainly do the highway commuting fine, but it's sort of unacceptably loud in the upper area. A lot of road noise transferring through. But if ride comfort and seat comfort are high on the list,
yeah,
this one's got that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it's good.
It'll do.
But it's actually louder than expected.
Yeah.
Okay, let's cruise on over. Driver assistance is doing great, by the way. So as we're just cruising along, this driver-facing camera is really sensitive. If you look away from the road, it'll start dinging at you. It's possible that you can turn off, sort of eye tracking. But even looking for exits and stuff, it's like, driver inattentive. But look at the CarPlay size on this.
Yeah, I like how the screen's actually integrated around these buttons or these knobs, which is neat.
Yeah, there it is dinging at me for looking at the screen. But yes, so CarPlay feels like the full screen, and then your climate settings are there all the time. A great implementation, I think.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, no issues at all. Guys, check this out. It also, I'm wrong, does lane changes. So if I push and hold on the turn signal, it then says check surroundings, and it is automatically doing a lane change perfectly. So I know the bigger Lexus systems do this, and it's great to see that the RZ gets the same thing. So we'll go back to the right and auto lane change automatically. Oh, damn. Driver assistance here is pretty good, actually. No issues. This thing rocks from assistance standpoint on the highway. I really like it. Nice work, Lexus. Oh. It is soft. You end up coming up. It's not firm, but it just...
It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was a big jump.
It was a big jump. Well, we are just coming off the highway now and learned some really interesting things about this. I just went a little bit up and down the highway to burn some juice. We're down to, I don't know, 35, 40%, something like that. And it was just an interesting exercise to see, okay, what happens when you kind of rip on it a little bit and just big accelerations just to burn the battery a little bit. And I found after only like 2 or 3 hard accelerations up to, pretty good speed, it started to thermal derate already. So,
yeah, really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's there's no way something is hot, but I wonder if it's just to sort of preserve itself. But yeah, wow, unbelievable views of the mountain range in front of us. Just gorgeous. And so on the highway, the driver assistance is really great. The sound system bumps.
Yeah, it was good.
That is really a good sound system. It's not e-tron level, it's not iX level, but it's definitely way better than you would expect in a car like this. So that is nice. If you're an audiophile, I think you'll enjoy the power of this sound system at least. Let's just test some handling around some roundabouts. So we'll kind of throw it in here. No one's to our right, so we've got some room. Off throttle, oversteer, on the throttle. It sends power to the front. So I just did a little bit of, just weight transfer to see how it would go. So you get lift off oversteer, which is great fun. It just really gets the thing around. Doing some plane spotting, that's cool. So the way this drivetrain works in a performance setting is under hard throttle like this, which it's still not even giving us full power. It could be maybe because we're at lower state of charge. We're only at 40%, 38%. It should give us full power. But no, it's got to be a state of charge limitation, not a temperature limitation. That's probably what it is. It's between 40% of the power to the front or 40% of the power to the rear. And so it's pretty much a neutral 60-40, 40-60 split longitudinal when you floor it. However, when you enter a corner, I swear I read this 5 times to make sure I was correct. When you turn in, it sends most of the power to the front to make it more direct. And I can totally feel that. Turning in, power's on the front. Unwinding the wheel should send more power to the back to let you get out of a corner. The problem is it's not that fast, so you're just wide open anyway. At least I am.
It's just a Lexus.
Yeah, but it's good to explain this. So as you enter a corner, it shifts the power to the front, which should make it understeer, but it's more stable. As you start to unwind the steering wheel on corner exit, it really shifts the power to the back. And you feel that as a driver under partial throttle, and it is kind of cool to have this front-rear longitudinal torque vectoring, if you will. And I think that's a good system. Like that, they made a big deal of it, like they worked really hard on it, and it works. As we're approaching the roundabout, I just would like to do a quick maximum braking test. You holding on, Alyssa?
Yep.
We'll do it from 60 miles an hour as usual, and...
That was a lot of noise.
So it's really good braking performance, actually. But holy smokes, the pump, the ABS pump is so loud. And the tires, of course, are pretty loud as well. So that's pretty fascinating. Let's just kind of, I'll get through this off-ramp a little bit here. Off-ramp, roundabout. Inside wheel spin. Yeah, I mean, it can let you have fun. No oversteering capability with only 80 kilowatt on the rear axle. I really wish they would put that 150 kilowatt portion on the back and 80 kilowatt up front. It's like the chassis can handle it. It's almost begging for it. So it just needs to be spiced up a little bit. By reversing the roles of the powertrain, make the rear axle the primary axle, it would be so much better. And we'll just make a quick U-turn and get on the other way here. Thankfully, there's just like no one back here, which is great. So U-turn on the on-ramp to enter the other lane, full power. You know what? It just went to full power. So what we were thinking was a state of charge limitation, now it's giving us full power, and we are at lower state of charge, of course. Why do I keep calling roundabouts off-ramps? Turn-in's great. Off throttle, oversteer. Yep, power down, straight we go. You can really balance it off throttle. It's just like, give me the power on the back. Okay, so surprisingly better handling, more grip, better braking performance than you would expect in something like this. So I call me pleased. The big determination is going to be what happens when we get to the charger and plug it in. Will we get good charging speeds? So let's drive on over that way. We'll drive gently, cool off whatever got warm on the way. And the brakes mostly, yes, and see if we can get any good charging speed. Well, we have just plugged in the RZ here at Electrify America, and look at this, here at 33%, 128 kilowatts. Whoa! And a viewer, Ryan, new friend, is over here at the same state of charge, doing 124 kilowatts in his ID4, and here we are, 136 at 35%, and he's doing 123 at 39. Okay, so maybe he's a little bit higher charged than we are, but there we are, just a reference. If this is how this thing charges, that is no problem at all. What a huge difference from the BZ4X there, because again, the all-wheel drive BZ4X has the slightly bigger battery, but way worse charging. This one has the front-wheel drive BZ4X battery, which this is acceptable. So you guys have to stay tuned. We're going to be doing the full 0 to 100% charging log of the RZ450E. So stay tuned. We'll compare it to the BZ4X, and we'll tell Toyota some of our recommendations as to how they can improve their charging. Here we are, 41%, 118 kilowatts. You can see ID4 is just starting to taper. This thing here at 37%, also just starting to taper, but seemingly very close to the ID4, the non-Chattanooga battery pack. This one, yeah, seemingly working great. No issues at all. Just a few minutes into the charging session now, we're already up to 45%. Really, I have zero complaints about this charging curve, especially considering my expectations with the BZ4X I've tested. Here's the ID4 on Ryan's car, 107 kilowatts at 48%, and we're doing 107 kilowatts at pretty much the same state of charge, just 45%. So very comparable to the Euro ID4s. So very, very fascinating. Talk about a total surprise on the charging performance. When they say 100 kilowatts on the BZ4X all-wheel drive, we could never get, again, above 86 kilowatts, something like that. This thing said 150, and even at higher state of charge, we plugged in at 33%. Man, it was chugging along exactly the same as the pre-refresh ID4. Now, why am I excited about that? It's still not great charging performance. The ID4 has since been updated to do 190 kilowatt peak, 195 we've actually seen with that battery pack, the LG Chem battery. No, it's the SK battery in the ID4 that charges fast, and we've seen juicy speeds. So, you know, this car's coming in at $20,000 more expensive than an ID4, and it still can't match today's ID4's charging speed, but it's at least livable. And the big worry it was, if someone's a Lexus buyer, a Lexus purchaser, and they get one of these, is it going to be as dreadful as a charging experience as BZ4X? And the answer is no. The answer is this is minimum acceptability. It's going to be on par with like the Mini Countryman fully electric that's coming, and a few other of these cars where charging performance just isn't great. It needs to be better, but yeah. So anyway, that is that. Let's put this thing into drive mode, sport, and we got to hit sport again. There we go, sport mode, and full send, full power. And it just really limits up top. Anything above 60 miles an hour, it takes away most of the, not most of the power, but a significant portion. So not a performance car, probably a good around town car. Definitely can't recommend you buy this car right off the bat, but people are going to, like I said, get to a Lexus dealer, not do any research, get the car, and I don't think they're going to be annoyed with it. I think they're actually going to enjoy it because it is instant response and does some EV things really well. But holy smokes, if you're in the market shopping for a new car, do not buy this new when they are used and cheap, when they're 20 grand or 15 grand in a few years. I'm just predicting big depreciation on these. Then you can go for it, because we know it's going to be super reliable and last a long time and do all those things. It's just not worth the price tag, especially in the context of its competition. But there you go, the Lexus RZ. A total disappointment from the brand, but at least it's not as bad as the BZ4X all-wheel drive. And that is my review. What do you think, Alyssa?
It's a funny way to end it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not as bad as the BZ4X. specs, and it's a Lexus.
Yeah.
It's just not great,
Yeah.
but not bad.
I can't wait for Ryan to take this one to do all the tests with it.
This screen just bothers the crap out of me. I think it's as bad as our Nissan Leaf.
Come on, our Nissan Leaf's a gem. Don't put it down like that, okay?
Oh yeah, she's a specimen.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, see y'all in another one soon. Bye-bye.